Hello everyone, welcome back. Let's continue to develop our security models. So last time we stopped at this user role and we explained the relationship between the two tables and why do we need this user role intermediate table. That's because the relationship between these two tables is many to many and we want to mitigate the complexity. That's why we add the intermediate table. We have one to many to this relationship here, and we have one to many as well. And eventually, from row through user row to user, the relationship would be many to many. Okay. So let's keep on developing. And we have this fetch eager. So this fetch type as eager means when system is trying to retrieve the records for one of the tables, it will try to retrieve the user role tables. You will try to find the corresponding reference tables. For example, user and row here, and the system will do it actively. So that when you have the user role retrieved, the corresponding user and rows will be available to be used. Another way to have this eager is to define it as lazy. This means when user are dealing with the user role table, it will not actively fetch the user table. And the reason we want this happen is because sometimes you say, for example, you have a lot of records in this user table, and you don't want to, retrieve directly while you are dealing with this user role, because it takes a long time to load this user, and if we do that very often, it will degrade the performance. Okay, so that's why. And right now, let's assume that we don't have many users. We can put eager here. Okay, and after that, we can generate the getters and setters here. We don't need this serial version ID for getters and setters, and we haven't included packages for now, but we'll be adding it soon. Let's add another domain model, and this time it will be user. Finish. Then we have our user class. We're gonna mark an entity as well because we're gonna persist it in database. This implements user details and serializable. So this user details, if we come and search, and we can see this is a user details from Spring Security 4. And basically what it does is provides the core user information. So these implementations are not used directly by Spring Security for security purpose. They simply store user information which is later encapsulated into the authentication objects. So we have created something related to authentication, right? And this allows non-security related user information to be stored in a convenient location. And then we have a bunch of methods available, like get authorities, get password, get username. Is this account non-expired? Is this account non-locked? Is this account enabled or not? So you can deal with those methods for this user details interfaces. Okay. And of course, we're gonna add a serial version UID, and I'm going to give a random number, and we're going to define a primary key. And also we have another annotation. Add a column name. and some configuration as well. So what this does is that we have ID generated value pretty much the same as before. It's just we have a column annotation and we give the name as ID. And there's parameters say nullable equals to false, updatable equals to false. As you can guess, basically we are defining the column name as our own name. And we are saying that this table cannot be, or this column cannot be null. It cannot make it null. You have to put some value into it, okay? Is table updatable? No. Once this value has been inserted into this column, it cannot be changed anymore. That's because we want a fixed ID for each record, okay? So this annotation gives you the ability to do that. And then we're gonna have some other typical variable fields like username, password, first name, string, and last name, email, phone, and whether the person has been enabled or not. And we're gonna define some other properties. One is the user role. So we have defined the relationship from the other side, right? In the user roles class, and we have to do similar things in the user class so that it can be matched up. It's just we have to do it a little differently because the relationship from that side is many to one. So from this side, it's gonna be one to many. And we're gonna specify another field parameter. It's called mapped by. Okay, and we have cascade type equals to cascade type dot or fetch type equals to eager. So what this does is, let me add those package first. So basically what it means is that this user roles and this user class, the relationship as we have seen from this class to this class is one to many. And if we look at from the user role, here user role and the user, the relationship is many to one, okay? And also we have the cascade, well, the mapped by first. That's because we have the user field defined, this one. So we want to specify which field is mapped up here. And we have the cascade type as all, which means when we create a user, okay, we have the corresponding user information inserted in the table, right? And in turn, those information will be passed down to the user role table. That means there will be a relationship established in the user role records. Okay, so that's why I said the cascade type is all, means whatever relationship will be established. And then the fetch type is eager, as we have discussed just now. Another thing that we need to pay attention to is this annotation. So we are dealing with the REST services. That means we are passing the class information, object information between HTTP transactions. So everything should be, serialized. And because those two tables are related, the user and the user roles, I would say those two classes are related. So you could go to user role, okay? We're trying to pass this user role information to the front end, okay? Say there's an HTTP request coming, so we have to respond with corresponding. object information for this user role. And we have the user role ID and a bunch of other information as well. And then we come to this user. So the system at the backend will responding that we have a user information as well, so that this user will be an object, which in turn has different fields as well: username, password, first name, last name, and it keeps going down. And then it sees another user roles, so it will go back to user roles. And the user roles will see it again, the user role ID, user role, and the user. Come to user again, it will come back to user. So in this case, it becomes an infinite loop. Eventually, it's gonna throw an error exception saying that this is an infinite loop. So it's not a valid case. And in order to get rid of the problem, there are multiple different ways. One of the easy way is to add this @JSON ignore annotation, so that when it comes to this user is trying to serialize and pass down information, right? When it encounters this user roles, it sees this @JSON ignore annotation, so that it will jump over this user roles. It will not pass this user roles, okay? So it will basically just ignore that when you try to serialize it. That's why we need this @JSON ignore, okay? So this is important to understand, all right? And after that, we have the shopping cart. So we're gonna comment this out because we're not really using this for now. Or let's just delete for now because we're not really using it. We'll add it later. And we're gonna generate our getters and setters. Select all of them. We only need the serial version UID. Okay, and let's check if there's an error or not. There's a red mark here. So user, some issue with that. And let's see what I say. Multiple markers at this line. The type user must implement the inherited abstract mapper. User details is account none locked. Well, that's because we have implemented this user details interface, right? Remember, we have different mappers that inherited, which haven't been implemented yet. So what we can do is double click on this user and see this pop up. We can click on this add unimplemented mappers as a fix. So if we scroll down, we can see there are multiple override mappers added. All right. So here we're gonna modify the code. This basically returns the authorities that we have. Remember just now we have added a authority class, which will be a rounded authority type. So we're going to define that. And user rows dot for each user row authorities dot add new authority ur.get row dot get name. And we'll be returning those authorities. And we need to import the authority class, okay? So what we are doing here, we are defining a new authorities hash set, and then we take our user roles, the user roles that we have defined here, and here we have for each method. This is basically the added method in Java 8. We are using an arrow operation doing something like we have a UR as a temporary variable, and we have a mapping for this temporary variable to do something. And basically what it does is that we have a user role as a set, right? So it has a couple of different user roles, and we're going to deal with each one of them. And for each one, this is an instance of user role. In the user role set, we're going to use the authorities.add, the new authority. Okay, and remember, authority has a constructor which takes a string as authority, which is actually the role name. So you have the ur.getRole.getName, which is a role name. Okay, so eventually those authority with the role name will be added to this authority set and eventually get returned. So that's this method, get authorities. Okay, so a couple new things that you need to pay attention to. And we can keep all this as true for easiness. There should be one more method called isEnabled. So let's just put it here so that we know this is a inherit method. And we'll basically return the enabled field variable that we have defined here. So by default, it is true. And if you want to change that, to manipulate that, you can just change it to false, in some cases. Okay? And let's come back to our user role. We need to import all the packages. So make sure that you are importing the user we have just added. Finish. And the role. Okay, so this should be role. Alright. So this looks good so far. And that's pretty much for this lesson. We'll continue in the next one. In the next lesson, we'll start to do some security configurations. Okay? Alright, see you guys in the next video. Bye.